Welcome to the Exhibit A podcast.
3, 2, 1, we are on. Hello, you are on Exhibit A, and we are virtual. We're interviewing a private investigator by the name of Joseph Jones, who's joined us today to talk about how he conducts investigations on social media and cyber investigations. So this is going to be really good for family law attorneys. It's also going to be really good for people who have family law matters that want to investigate a little bit. Not all of our cases require investigators, but I'll say this at the beginning is that the use of a good private investigator is underutilized in family law cases, without a doubt. People tend to shy away because maybe they think that it's too costly, or maybe they think it's kind of icky to be involved in an investigation, but believe me, it can make or break a case. So how are you, Joseph?
Hey, dude, all things considered, doing well.
Yeah, all things being considered. So you, like the rest of the world, are operating virtually with a lot of your colleagues at your company, I presume?
Yep. We've got about half of our staff is now working from home. The rest of the staff we've got, spaced out and, figuring out as we go day by day.
Yeah, this is really an interesting experience for people that are self-employed or in the private sector because, either you roll over and you just surrender, or you try to make it work and try to make your company better. And knowing you and knowing your company, I have no doubt that this is actually a challenging time, but a exciting time as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's opening up, kind of new opportunities for us to forge relationships with clients in new ways. I mean, we had a client last week that we stood in line and got toilet paper for him. We're telling our clients literally anything that you need done, we'll find a way to make it happen, because I've got a lot of employees who have families that rely on their income, and I'd rather, have them go stand in line, to get toilet paper than to have to send them home.
Yeah, well, that speaks a lot of your integrity, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So what you should know, our audience, is that me and Joseph Jones met at a Pasadena Bar Association meeting. We have monthly meetings in our local bar association. Joseph was the guest speaker for 2 occasions. I was able to attend the second one. I was so impressed that afterwards I came up to him and I asked him, hey, would you join us on a podcast? Or would you come to our office and provide training? And what really struck me, Joseph, was the integrity of your company. We talked a lot about ethics, and you were not only, representing a company that's very polished and professional, but highly ethical. So we're not going to be talking about breaking the law here, when we're talking about the use of a private investigator. We're talking about things that are done legally. So let's first talk about you, if you don't mind. Okay,
Well,
we'll talk about your company, and then we'll talk about some of the things that you do for people like me. So, Joseph, you are the vice president and partner. Am I correct about that? In the company that you are with?
Yep. Vice president partner of Bosco. My dad started the company when I was running around in diapers.
Oh my God.
And now as we've grown, my dad, my oldest brother, and I are partners together.
That is amazing. Most of the private investigators that we have hired in the past have been solo practitioners, for lack of a better term. You're the first company that I've seen that is as large as you are. I have worked with a company that had several investigators, but your company crosses the state lines, right? I mean, you're kind of all over the place.
Yeah, so we are primarily operate in California. And that's where all of our offices are. But yeah, I mean, we try and strike that balance between having the specialized knowledge of the one-man show, without having the bureaucracy of dealing with a large organization.
Right. So you have a Bachelor's of Arts degree in psychology. You graduated summa cum laude at your college level. And it really struck me that you had a degree in psychology, because a lot of the art of what you do involves understanding people and how they think and how they interact and everything. And I'm sure that degree has helped you in serving your clients. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Certainly I'm not a psychologist, and, I didn't go on and get my PhD and all of that. but certainly I understand human behavior. It's of great interest to me. I got an associate's degree as well, and I've done a lot of studying outside of the criminal justice system and psychology, but taken all that and been able to apply it in my practice. And I think that that's one of the things that my clients have really enjoyed and benefited from, because as I'm working a case and as I'm instructing my operatives on how to work the case, we try and get to the core of why people are doing what they're doing and how we can come up with creative solutions to get the information that we need.
There's a lot of police officers, which I'm a former cop, and a lot of attorneys that have undergraduate either degrees or maybe minors in psychology. I loved psychology when I was in college, and I really apply my understanding of human psychology in what I do. And I think that's why I understand your use of it as much. I have a partner, Casey Marticarena, who I think you might have met at the PBA event, but she also, has an undergraduate degree in psychology. And you can just tell that when we're talking about negotiating or dealing with clients that have a lot of severe problems, emotionally because of what they're going through, having that understanding and that, empathy for people because of our understanding really applies. So that's good. Now, can you talk a little bit about what your company does, in its totality, as far as serving family law clients of mine that, would need the services of an investigator?
Sure. So the kind of two main things that we do for family law clients are going to be asset locates and social media investigations. We won't really dive into asset locates today. That's a whole conversation in of itself. But focusing specifically on social media cyber, there's a few things that we come across pretty regularly. One is going to be the ex-spouse or the soon-to-be ex-spouse is putting a lot of information on social media that could be relevant to the case, whether it's they're just, generally, trash talking or engaging in conduct that the court wouldn't appreciate, or whether they're posting about their nefarious activities. I mean, I had one, it was a child endangerment case that they were concerned about what dad was doing with the kid. We started doing our social media investigation. We found that dad was posting photos of the child unclothed on social media. We found that the subject was also using the child to attract women on social media.
Wow.
And so it created some really interesting dynamics that we needed to do, and one of the that we needed to capture and that were relevant to our case. One of the things that we come across a lot, and not all attorneys understand, is just because one of the litigants sees this stuff on social media and they screenshot it doesn't mean it's going to see the light of day. Right? Doesn't mean the judge will review it, doesn't mean it's going to be admitted as evidence, because you have serious authentication and foundational issues that, depending on the judge and their understanding, you may not be able to overcome unless it's properly preserved, right? Unless you have an investigator knows what they're doing, forensically preserves it, make sure it's not a fake post, make sure it's not the ex, logging into their phone in their account and posting it.
You sound like an attorney. I love it. Keep going.
Yeah, right. Well, and this is one of the very unique things about what we do specifically is we're at the forefront of this, right? And so oftentimes I have to educate the attorneys. I don't have a law degree, and there's certainly a lot about the law that I don't understand, but specifically as it relates to social media and social media evidence, I oftentimes have to educate the attorneys on, hey, here's what you need to be aware of, because it's complicated issues and it's still so new, legally speaking, right? 2005 is about when it started kicking off, and it got, major popularity, I don't know, about 2008, 2009 is when it really started taking off. So anyway, so we do a lot of that. And then the other thing we deal with a lot for family law type issues is we deal with tracking down fake accounts. I'm knee deep in a case right now, really, really unfortunate situation where our client had on her phone, she had taken some intimate videos, and somebody had got their hands on that video and is now distributing it online.
So this is called cyber porn, right? This is something that could be.
It'll be called usually revenge porn.
Revenge porn.
Or sextortion. Okay. Right. So revenge porn being somebody gets it and just out of spite, they start distributing it. Sextortion is going to be more along the lines of, hey, I've got these videos of you. You need to do X, Y, or Z. Otherwise, I'm going to distribute. But either way, this activity usually happens on fake accounts, right? Somebody will create, a fake Instagram profile. It takes 3 minutes to do. And then they can start communicating back and forth with people under the assumption that they are anonymous. And so part of what we do is we'll help, figure out who is actually behind those accounts.
Fascinating stuff. Things that didn't exist 10 years ago is now a complete industry for people like yourself. I imagine your dad, when he started the business many years ago, didn't have a clue that he would be, that the company would be venturing into these things.
Sure. Yeah. It's been a game changer for us. We feel very blessed, very fortunate that, we identified this as a unique area of practice that we wanted to get into at the right time. So, this day and age, there's 1,000,001 places you can go to get like a social media investigation report that's not worth the paper it's printed on. But back when we started, none of that was available. And so I went out and I got training from these different organizations that really knew what they were doing, right? Most of it was like criminal investigation stuff, agencies who train, Department of Homeland Security, CIA, FBI. I went and learned all their tricks, all that, I call them tricks, techniques and other methodologies that could be used to investigate. And then I applied that to, civil and family law investigations, which is where we live. Cool.
So Joseph, for our audience to know how this could be played out, how are people using social media in nefarious ways? I've got a couple of examples, but I want to open it up to you. You just listed a couple of things, but, I've seen, like, for example, people, or not even necessarily nefarious ways, but doing things on social media that, if presented in court, could get them in trouble, such as, the guy who says, I'm a recovered alcoholic, and I never drink. I stopped drinking 2 years ago. I swear to God, I've never done it. Nobody's ever seen me do it, and therefore I should have primary custody of my kids. And then on social media over the past weekend, he's been over in, San Diego, slugging down beers, and he's got pictures and he's partying, and, there's a picture of him passed out and things like that. Our audience might think that this is far-fetched, but there are cases that are like that. So what are some of the other things that, we don't want to talk about, case names or anything like that, but scenarios where people have really stepped in it by posting things on social media?
Sure. And the list of stupid things that people do online is innumerable, right? We do a lot of personal injury work, both for usually for the defense, but also for the plaintiff sometime. And it's important to note that as an investigator, me and my company, it's very important to us that we step into every case completely devoid of taking any sides, right? My job and our job is to collect information, whatever information is out there. And we always try and demonstrate that to to the courts, to our clients, to everybody else. And it's especially tricky with family law because usually it's so emotionally charged. The clients come into it with a very clear picture of what they think is going on. And so we have to, sort out what they're saying versus, what's factual.
There's always two sides to a story, without a doubt.
Always two sides to a story. That being said, we've got perfect example of a case that I recently worked on. We've got an individual who was engaged in hiring a lot of escorts, and taking marital funds to funding his escapades with the escorts and with the drugs and the whole thing, right? And so we're able to use various online cyber investigation methodologies to figure that out, right? We were able to get some phone numbers off of his phone, figure out who he was calling, find those people on escort websites, build a profile of them.
Oh my God, I think at least 50% of my clientele would love to hear more about that. There's also the type of case where the woman who's been supported for 10 years of spousal support claims that she can't work, because she's hurt, or he. So in this day and age, there's a lot of guys that are being supported. He can't work, and the paying spouse is like, darn it, I just know for a fact that this is just a bogus claim. I had one case where the lady came in with a wheelchair into the courtroom, and then several years later, we're looking on social media, and she's exercising in the gym, and she's doing all kinds of physical stuff. So I imagine for people that want to see if folks are living together, with the opposite sex and things like that, going on social media and being able to actually, like you said, authenticate that stuff could be valuable. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. We do, the cohabitation stuff, we do a fair amount of that. And usually that's going to be a combination of social media and, some of the old school tactics, doing some surveillance. We'll pull property records, we'll go through, we'll get utility records, see who's paying the bills. A lot of times, especially in family law, we have to take a really multifaceted approach, right? Where we're getting social media, and then we're also, putting that together with information that we gather from more, traditional types of investigation.
I love it. So Joseph, I know what I'm going to hear. Somebody's going to come up to me and say, Don, why are you hiring an investigator who is just simply going on Google, right? You could just search and find this stuff, and it's just as easy. I just go on Facebook, for crying out loud. That's all I need to do. I could go through all of the social media sites. I don't need to have an investigator. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, so you'd be wrong for a few reasons. And family law is, unique in the sense that a lot of the social media that's out there, the litigants will know about, right? Because they're in the same social circles, their friends are seeing it. So certainly, that's worth acknowledging, that your clients are going to know a fair amount of what's out there. But here's the issue. Once you have that post of, with your example, the ex who's out going on a weekend bender, you've got those posts. How do you get those in front of a judge? Certainly the ex could come up and say, hey, I went on Facebook and here's what I found. But then the question is, well, how do you know when that photo was actually taken? How do you know that wasn't from?
Stop right there, Joseph, because I think that our audience needs to hear this, is because a lot of people think that if they just print up something, that it's going to come into evidence. And there's always the argument that, those are doctored. That photograph was taken 4 years ago, right? And she's playing games with the language and stuff. And that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have the issue of, when the photos were actually taken, how that the post that you're presenting even came from the subject's account, not a duplicate account, not an account created by somebody, who's trying to impugn their, reputation. There's all kinds of legal issues and legitimate issues, right? It's not always just technicalities. I've certainly worked on cases where people have presented posts, hey, look, this person's out doing X, Y, or Z. And we'll look into it and we'll say, no, that's fake. Somebody doctored that. Somebody, somebody's taking that out of context. So that's from a practical standpoint, that's one of the reasons you need an investigator and a specialized investigator, right? Your standard ex-cop is not going to know how to do this kind of. Hey, right. Sorry. No,
former cop, man.
No offense. And hey, and I've got.
Hit the
Um,
door.
yeah, one of my investigators who sits right outside my office, retired FBI, 25 years.
Okay. All right.
Guy's super sharp. He's got some really great skills that are even better than mine.
Okay.
When it comes to social media, not so much.
Okay.
But so that from the practical standpoint is why you're going to need it, but also from the technical standpoint, you've got to be able to extract the metadata, the HTML code that sits behind it. You've got to hash it, which creates a digital fingerprint, so the courts can see that you have provided a true copy of the original. You haven't tampered with it, and then you can dive into the issues of how you firm up what date the photos were actually taken, as opposed to when they were posted.
That is so valuable. I'm going to tell you right now that a lawyer's nightmare is going into court and thinking that you're going to introduce evidence and then it being shut down because of what we call lack of foundation.
Yep.
And you're laying the foundation because you've got the expertise that you have.
Right. And I'll tell you, some attorneys are still getting away with it. Right. If the judges don't know, if the other side doesn't know, if for whatever reason, nobody's going to object. Hey, people are still getting away with it. But the case law that's out there is very clear on that issue.
Yeah. And Joseph, the rules of evidence apply in family court. Some judges don't apply it as much as they should, but nowadays more than ever, I think, and what you're saying is true is that, you can slop it in sometimes, but most of the times, if it's seriously challenged, the court is going to go with the evidence code.
Yep, exactly.
Well, cool. So now let's segue into another topic that I think is really interesting, and that is, cyber investigations. And this would get into what I call my spouse is hacking me, or breaking into my email, or stalking me on the internet. I mean, you hear all of these things and stuff,
Sure.
and I assume that is something that you work with your clients as well.
Yeah, so that is something that we can help with, at least to a limited extent. When you're talking about, they've got access to my phone, they're tracking me electronically. In order to really flush that out, you have to do like digital forensics. Right, you actually have to get the device, go through it, and see, if there's any malware installed, any apps running in the background that you don't know about. That we help with a little bit, but depending on how complicated it is, I also have an outside expert that, when I'm over my head, when I start looking through it and hey, I'm not smart enough for this, I've got a guy who's smarter than me. That I engage. It's tricky though, and what we find oftentimes in divorce situations, and not to say that this stuff doesn't go on, because it does. There's bad actors out there, that do bad things. What my experience has shown me with those issues specifically, most of the time the X is just in our client's head. Right, they've got them really worried because of whatever abuse has gone on in the relationship, or whatever. And most of the time, at least in cases that we've worked on, we're finding that it's not really going on. That it's just the person is very they're very concerned about something that they shouldn't be, because the other party has really gotten to their head. And sometimes the investigations are worth doing just for that peace of mind. Oftentimes what we find is, even if we do the investigation and tell them, hey, this isn't going on, they don't believe us.
I agree with you, and I have a lot of my clients who I love that do have that issue, as the other side has been so mean in the past and so controlling in nature that they're paranoid basically, and they don't trust, and they change their emails constantly. And so having somebody like you to at least look at it and assure them that they're safe, I think is money well spent.
Sure. And I will always shoot straight with a client right up front. right? I'll do kind of the initial intake. I'll say, hey, based on the thousands of cases that I've worked, I'll give you a X% chance that we're going to do this investigation and it's going to come up with a goose egg. So is it worth spending this amount of money so we can come back and tell you not to worry about it?
Yeah.
And it depends on the client, right? Sometimes the money isn't not as big of an issue where it's worth doing that just for a little peace of mind. Sometimes there's like, hey, great, I'm already scraping by as it is. Maybe I can just flush this out of my mind as not needed.
Okay. Let me give you a hypothetical, because I know that you testified as an expert many times, right?
Yep, I have.
You're not, and that's one thing that the audience should know is when you hire an expert in any type of a lawsuit, and especially in family courts, that expert needs to be able, capable, and have experience of testifying in court. Because, if you get somebody that's an appraiser but is not willing to go into court, that appraisal is got limited use. So if you're using a private investigator, you need somebody that is comfortable and has actually got experience like Joseph has. So having said that, I'm going to give you a hypothetical as if you're on the stand here, okay? Let's assume hypothetically that your client is a 40-year-old woman who's got a couple of kids, and the cause of the breakup is that husband has gone berserk. He's been involved in secretly in criminal organizations throughout the country. He's gotten involved in some hate speech conduct on the internet. He's created music that is disgusting. It's all racially motivated. He's part of basically like a terrorist group, and he's got postings on the internet that, if could be linked to him, would definitely sink him in his attempt to get like custody of the kids or spousal support or something like that. So how would you approach a case like that and possibly help a client that wants to know he's not necessarily doing anything against her, right? He's not like posting things about her, but he's out there doing some nefarious conduct, maybe even like selling weapons or drugs on the internet or something. How would you go about proving that?
Sure. So, and frankly, I'm working on a case right now that's not too different from that scenario that you're bringing up. So the first thing is we need to figure out all of the email addresses, phone numbers, and user handles that he's used in the past and that he's currently using to engage in his online conduct, right? So we figure all that out, and then from there we can branch out and find all of the sites that he's engaging in this activity on.
Can I stop you there for a second? If you had access to a computer they had laying around the house that he abandoned when he left, would that possibly help you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Continue.
Yeah. So then we're going to go out. We're going to find all of the posts, all of the videos, all of the listings for the weapons. If he's selling weapons, most likely that's going to be on the dark net, which is kind of an entirely different conversation, because most of the sites on the open web, they block selling a firearm. So we're gonna have to know the right places to look for that stuff. But we're gonna go into all these corners of the internet, find all the information that he's posting. We're going to forensically preserve that. We're going to go through the accounts, figure out who his followers are, who he's following, who he's engaging with, and we're going to capture a little information about them as well to show that his connections are known criminals. They're part of this criminal organization, whatnot. So we figure that out. We get it all forensically preserved, and then we're going to depending on what the need is, we're gonna take that information, we're gonna put it into a report with the metadata, we're gonna present it to the attorney and say, hey, here's what we've got. It's all locked down, it's all forensically sound. If we're finding like fake accounts, so for example, he's using the user handle, selling guns 123. Right, we're gonna go and say, hey, we're pretty sure that this is him. My confidence rating is 90%. It's 99%. If we need it stronger than that, here's what we're going to do. We're going to subpoena whoever the platform is, whoever the email service provider is, to get the IP addresses for all of the logins, right? So if I can't definitively say, hey, this is our guy, now we're going to subpoena, let's say Instagram, right? We're going to subpoena Instagram, here's the account, selling gun guy 123. We want the IP addresses for every time he's logged in. Then we get those IP addresses back, which that's the digital address. That's the internet address. So now we have that. We get it back from Instagram. We say, all right, he's logged in from these 10 IP addresses. Great. Now we're going to identify the internet service provider who manages those IP addresses. In this case, we'll say it's Charter, right? We're going to say Charter and Verizon Wireless. Now we're going to subpoena Charter to say, hey, on these dates and times, we want to know what address this internet signal was coming from. And then for Verizon, we want to know on these dates, where this internet signal was coming from. And then once we have that, most of the time that's going to come back to, hey, on these dates and times when user, I'm selling guns 123 was posting this content, it was happening from our subject's living room.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. I can tell that you've had experience with this because you did that seamlessly. Really, really good. So Joseph, we're running out of time. So what I want to ask you to do is tell the audience, when they should come and see you in a family law case. Should it be, at the beginning of the case? Should it be towards, towards the end of trial? And, what kind of issues do you think that they are strongly encouraged to come in and meet with you?
Yeah. So usually I would recommend not reaching out to us until you've got an attorney in play. Because oftentimes people reach out and they say, hey, I want X, Y, or Z done. And I'll say, that's all well and good, but I don't know if that's even going to help you, right? Like, okay, you think your spouse is cheating. Like, I can appreciate why you'd want to know, but even if we find he's cheating, it's going to have no bearing on, any legal proceeding. So usually it's going to be, after they've already engaged with, with an attorney. And then depending on the facts of the case, it could be early in the case, it could be in the middle, it could be in the end, it could be after, right? With asset locates, when we're tracing bank accounts, usually that's best done, kind of in the middle of the case, right? After some discovery has been done, we know what they're disclosing and we can see holes, hey, there's money missing, we need to go find it. On social media, anytime you think there's something out there that's relevant, reach out immediately, right? Because with social media, stuff can be here one day, gone the next. And you want to make sure you get it forensically preserved right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joseph, how can somebody find you? Was there a phone number or a website or something you could give our audience?
Yeah. So our email address is boscolegal.org. You can call us 951-353-8281. And you can always email us at investigations@boscolegal.org.
Awesome. Hey, this was really fun, Joseph. And, we just touched on a little bit of what you do for people that need investigators. And maybe you'll be so kind to join us again.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do a follow-up dive into some more of the asset issues.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining Exhibit A. See you next time.
For more information, visit us at PasadenaLawOffice.com.